to an off-the-shelf model as opposed to the bespoke model that the Florence speech.
Well, there were three different models were modelled.
Sure, but they were all off-the-shelf options that we've already got in play. And it's also interesting, given the range from 2 to 8% drop. Imagine if it's, that's a 6-point range. 6 points the other way, but it makes a growth of 4%. So I mean, it's a
so we shouldn't take them seriously.
It's not taking them seriously. I mean, I think
well, what's the point if we don't take them seriously?
I'm used day to day as a minister to getting a whole range of different opinions that come through. Sometimes they will be draft documents, and I think the important thing is you use your own judgment. Don't slavishly take everything, but of course you take seriously everything that comes through. But try. So
should they be published when they're finalised drafts so that we can use our judgment?
We have a debate in the House today, and we, of course, as a government, will respect the view of the House, and I suspect that the humble address that is being beseeched upon the House today, that motion is likely to pass.
Is the government going to oppose it?
We're going to be abstaining on
You'll abstain?
The debate. We will play a full part in the debate. But,
so it'll get through then?
So we'll get through, and I think they will be published. But I think that's the big caveat, is these are draft, and they don't take account of what we regard as the desired outcome, which is to have a bespoke deal.
So are you going to publish the drafts, or are you going to wait and publish when the drafting's finished?
Well, it would probably make sense to try and get as much of the draft published at an earlier point as is possible. But again, the difficulty with this
is a mess, isn't it?
Well, it will look a mess because it will not look as though we've got a sense of a document that is an official government document that takes account of exactly what we're trying to achieve. And
we don't know we don't know what you're trying to achieve. That's part of the problem. George Bridges, a former Brexit minister, he said, there's no bridge to a clear destination. There's just a gangplank into thin air.
Well, I'm very sorry.
And that's your own side.
I'm very sorry that he feels that way, because I think that the Florence speech from the Prime Minister last year made it very clear that we are thinking, we are a large country, a large nation within the EU. The notion, therefore, of having a deal that is the same as Norway with a population of 5 million, or Switzerland with a population of 9 million, or 340,000 in Iceland is a non-starter. We want a specific, bespoke deal.
Right.
Now, obviously,
so what should that consist of?
Well, there's a whole range of areas that's going to go in obviously financial services, close to my own heart as the member for the City of London. The importance of London as a wholesale.
Sure. So what do we want in financial services? What does the government want in financial service? What should we want as a country?
This is open to a lot of negotiation. And whenever I speak...
I know that, but in every negotiation you make a demand.
No, we don't make a demand. We try and compromise.
You put your position. So what's your position?
And we closely work, and I'm not going to be announcing what our position is on this programme, not least because this is a fluid situation. The reality is, when I speak to people in the city, they are used to the idea of having a couple of all-night sessions before a deal finally gets done. We are going to be having a debate and discussions on this matter, I fear, right through till March of 2019. But I don't think we should. I don't think we should be fearful of that. I mean, that is the way in which negotiations are done.
But on so many important areas, you cannot tell us what the government's end goal is. Not what you will necessarily get entirely in the negotiations, but what you're striving for. You can't tell us.
Listen, if we started telling everyone exactly what the end goal was, you're giving away your negotiation.
Well, you have to tell the other side, otherwise you can't negotiate.
Of course there's give and take, and a huge amount of negotiation has gone on. And listen, if I were in the studio 2 months ago, Andrew, you'd be saying, listen, it was all calamitous, everything was going to collapse. Suddenly, just before Christmas, we got through stage one. There was a sense of making progress on the important areas that needed to get decided before stage two began.
Labour's pushing for this economic assessment to be published. Why do you put so much store on forecasts from people whose previous forecast was so far out?
Well, we think if the government has commissioned this work, that it must be putting some store by it. We expect it to be of a reasonable quality, especially given that initially we were told that it was done in excruciating detail, then we were told it didn't exist, then something was published which was at best superficial. So now we find there is something, thanks to BuzzFeed, and we want to know what it is.
That's the site that leaked it.
Yeah, I mean, we want to know what there is.
Will you put much store
well, we don't
by
know
them?
until
I mean,
we see it.
These are the people, the Treasury.
Yes.
They said that unemployment would rise. This was their forecast. If we voted to leave, unemployment would rise between 500,000 and 820,000. That was the range. And it would be a quick rise.
Yes,
The
it is.
500,000 would probably happen before Christmas of 2016. What actually happened?
Well, we want these papers.
No, what actually
because-
happened?
Well, we all know what's happened since.
Well,
then.
just tell
It
us,
doesn't
for
matter.
those that don't.
That isn't the point. The point
Well,
is...
surely it is. They made
isn't.
the
It's
fact
not the
is
point. Well,
that unemployment continued to fall.
If you take that argument, then you will never bother looking at any forecasts, any evidence. We're saying we want the forecasts and we want to be able to interrogate them and challenge them. And if we think that the data used underlying them is incorrect or insufficient or been over-interpreted, we'll be able to debate that. But at the moment, all we have is a partial leak. And the Brexit ministers are saying, well, this is a partial leak, it doesn't really matter, it's not that important. And in the very same breath is using
Well, you're
the
going to get them.
information.
You're
I
going
think
to get them.
we are, of course.
Let's
we
come
are.
on to Labour's
We are.
position on the end state,
Oh, yes.
because the government is being criticised for not being clear, and I've just been asking questions about that. You were asked on ITV about Labour's position on what it wants, and you said, I do think that people are capable of getting their heads around this. What we're saying is that we want the benefits of the single market, but that we're uneasy about accepting all of the laughter. We want the benefits of the single market. Our constituents have said very clearly in voting to leave that there are aspects of membership they're not content with. That's why it's a negotiation. This was you clarifying Labour's position.
That was perfectly clear.
Would you
I
like
think.
to have another go?
No, I think that did the job very, very well. What I'm saying there is that we want the benefits of the single market and the customs union, but to ignore the fact that there was a clear message from many people about free movement of labour would be just to stick hands over our ears and pretend we.
All right.
We
So
haven't
is it
heard.
your position that we should stay as members of the single market?
Well, without getting too legalistic about it, we are going to need a new treaty. So you can't just stay as members of the single market, because we are members by virtue of our membership of the EU, which ends at the end of March next year. So we need a new treaty. Now,
But
quite-
should that new treaty include membership of the single market?
it won't include membership of the single market,
Right.
because it will be a new treaty and we won't be members in the same way that we are now. How closely we dock to the single market, for want of a better way of putting it, that needs to be negotiated. But there are some aspects of membership that I don't think the country is content with and that we would want to negotiate around.
So how is that different from the government's position?
Because the government's taken membership of the single market and the customs union off the table, and the Labour Party hasn't.
Well,
and we've said,
So you might still be members of the single market?
and we've said on transition that we will accept a transitional period
Right.
on the same terms that we have now. Now, that is very different to what the government is saying, although I will say it's very hard to square the circle of the end of the phase one negotiations and the very serious, solemn commitments that were made there, and the Florence speech, which says we're not going to be part of these institutions. How can you have it both ways?
I still don't have any idea whether Labour thinks we should stay members or not after the transition period. On the transition period, Minister, will we stay members of the single market during the transition period?
I don't know. I mean, that is going to be something that we are going to be debating during the course of it. It is possible.
Hasn't the government's about to begin negotiations. Don't you need to have your position determined?
You're quite right. Beginning the negotiation, not ending the negotiation, but beginning the
But
negotiation.
you can't begin negotiations if you don't want to know what you're going to ask.
No, the truth is, Andrew, I think it's very clear that what will command a majority of the public is something that is compatible with the vote to leave the European Union. That means we cannot remain members of the single market or the customs.
But during
union
the transition?
after the
Afterwards.
transition, after the
Right.
transition. So that is what is going to be compatible. But we obviously, I think the public out there want to see as many of the benefits and advantages.
Well, you're both
that
saying
we
that.
have.
But at least Labour has been, I think, still very unclear at the end state, but clearer than you are on the transition, because you would stay in the single market for the transition as members and you stay in the customs union. Will we stay in the customs union for the transition?
Well, I think there will have to be some issue around Ireland. I mean, I don't think any of us deny after we joined the EEC in 1973, at the height of the Troubles, Ireland and the UK together, the interconnection between our two countries remains as strong as ever. There will need to be some, I mean, dare I say, maybe fudge deal, but something in relation to Ireland that will allow.
But the cabinet,
I'm very pleased to hear you say that.
but the cabinet
Very welcome.
subcommittee
But I
was
think- I
meant
think
to
the
discuss
practical
that
terms
on
of it.
Monday, and the papers were withdrawn.
Right.
So we still don't know. Yeah, just one final thing. Will free movement, as we currently have it, continue for the transition period?
I I don't know. I suspect.
You don't
if-
know.
No,
You
but
are-
I don't know because it is.
you are in the
it-
Foreign
it-
Office.
It is part of the negotiation.
No, but how a negotiation? I mean, I've done negotiations.
Yeah,
I don't know
sure.
if you have, but I have.
I was a lawyer. I was
so
a
how it
businessman before
works
becoming a
is
member of
one
the Parliament.
side says, "This is what we would like," and the other side says, "This is what we would like," and then you negotiate to try and bring the two sides together. But if you don't tell us
so we have-
this is what we would like, how can you
I think
negotiate?
there is no settled position on the issue of free
You haven't
movement.
resolved that yet.
No, there's no settled position, and it will be part and parcel of the
So
negotiations.
the government
whether-
hasn't yet.
whether we-
The referendum was in June 2016. You triggered Article 50 coming up for a year ago. You've done phase one of the negotiations. Phase two is about to start. And you still cannot tell us your position on some of the most fundamental issues.
No, there's no settled position on the transition period at which point free movement, as we currently have it, will end. It will end. It will end at some point between 2019 and the end of the transition period.
We'll have to end this conversation, I'm afraid.
Thank you.